Welcome to LifeBlood. This is George G, and the time is right. Welcome to today's guest, strong and powerful Jenny Christner. Jenny, are you ready to do this?
I am.
Awesome. Let's go. Jenny is an MD. She is the CEO of Christner Strategies. She is the Senior Dean of the Baylor School of Medicine and School of Health Professions and certified life coach for healthcare professionals and executives. Jenny, excited to have you on. Tell us a little bit about your personal life, some more about your work, and why you do what you do.
Sure thing. Well, I am in Houston, been here 7 years, and we love it. I'm married with 3 kids and 3 pets, so I guess there's something about threes that I like. I always have to eat 3 Oreos, that kind of thing. So I don't know, but and then what I do. So I actually it's kind of interesting how I fell into this line of work that I do. I'm a pediatrician. I did adolescent medicine. I really loved teaching, so I went into academic medicine, and through that, I think 2 things that happened that kind of led to what I do now in Christner Strategies. And that is, one thing is that you continually mentor people. So you're always are mentoring students or residents, even as you go up the ladder, junior faculty. And another thing that you are always doing is speaking, right? So I'm leading meetings, I'm speaking in groups, I speak at conferences, and I really loved both of those things. And the other little thing about me is that when I grew up, I was in theater a lot. And so I did lots of community theater. I was always, the lead in the plays at school. And then I just loved it, and it gave me joy and it gave me energy. And then medical school happened, and basically did nothing of any of that gives me joy or creativity or anything like that. So I finally decided, as I was nearing a big milestone birthday, that it was time to do some of those things that I had really liked a lot. And that's how I kind of fell into improv. And I took a improv class, and I loved it. And I completed they have 5 levels, and I completed all 5 levels. And I said, there's absolutely a way to kind of use this in what I do every day. So that's kind of how it all began.
Awesome. So is it common for physicians to be creatives, to be expressives?
I don't know how common it is, but yes. So I think, as there are a lot of really creative people in medicine. If you look, there's lots of people who actually have their own podcasts, who do creative writing. There's actually a small little pod of us that actually do improv that I actually found out when I explored this, and I was actually like, oh my gosh. So there are. I think you have to struggle, though, a little bit at the beginning to find that, because really in the beginning your training is so intense that if you're not careful, it can really kind of squash everything. And then some people are really good at keeping a little line intact, where other people have to have it emerge again. And I was one of those that had to have it kind of emerge again. So
yeah, I appreciate that. It strikes me that it's probably not going to just emerge again on its own. I imagine the rigors of medicine, if it's actually helping patients or if it's on the administrative side, the teaching side, both are very, very demanding on your time and your attention and energy. And so without intention, you're probably not going to take an improv class or devote the time that it takes to do it.
Yes, I think you're right. Yes, right. Yeah, right, for sure. So, and I think I had just reached that point where I was probably getting close to burned out. I wasn't there yet, but I knew, and I wanted to do something so that I would still really love my job, but that also brought me joy in my personal life. And then really found something that could bridge both worlds, which was even more amazing. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I'm, again, I have to imagine that your story is, or rather the way that you were feeling, is not uncommon. That getting close to burnout, not uncommon, but that you took the action to do it. I feel like people just need nudges.
Yes, 100%. No, I really believe that. And I think the other really thing, and this is, a little bit different from this is part, I guess, more of the coaching than the improv, but I think people are waiting one day for just like happiness to drop down upon them. Like, I'll be, you know, when this happens, I'll be happy. When, you know, when I get this job, I'll be happy. When my partner does this, I'll be happy. And really, at least for me, what I found, it's not those big things, those big circumstances that make you happy, but it's just like little moments, you know, that in life that make you really, really happy. And so it's really just kind of dwelling or thinking about all those little moments and those little choices that you make that bring you to more and more of those little moments in life that create that joy. So
I don't know why it is that we think about life or goals or happiness in that way, but we do. And it seems like we're all afflicted with that of once I get X, then I will be Y.
right. Yeah. And it's just not true. And we sadly see evidence of that, right? We see, you know, movie stars, you know, I mean, they're some of the most prominent sports stars, right? Who you would say have everything, quote unquote, right? They have it all, but they engage in very destructive behaviors. And so that's a very just blatant way to demonstrate that having all those things that you think will bring you happiness don't often bring you happiness. And I think the practice of, you know, writing your gratitude, so that I wake up every morning and the first thing I do is write down my gratitudes, and they're very small things, right? It's not like, you know, that world peace or, you know, or anything like that. It's like some days it's like I really like the color of my nail polish that I'm wearing today. That's making me happy today. That's what I got. You know, but it's just those little things that are really really important in creating
Yeah.
that happiness. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's wild. The people that, to your point, if it's a famous person, an athlete, whatever, somebody who's rich, or I think maybe another great example is somebody that is poor and then wins the lottery, and
Right.
you know, self-destructs and is absolutely broke again within just a couple of years.
Yes. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah.
What is I mean, so what is the work that needs to get done? Because I appreciate the practice of gratitude and
Yep.
self-care and tactics, but what do I need to do internally?
Yeah, so I think a couple things. So I think one is that you have to recognize that your thoughts about something is what creates your feelings, and then drives your actions from that. And so so it's really about reframing your thoughts about things. That's what's really important. And you know, a lot of people will say, well, what do you mean? You know, something horrible happened. Do you expect me to be happy about that? And just change my feelings and my thoughts about that. And so know that, you know, when something really terrible or tragic happens, it's not an expectation that you say, oh, well, it's okay. But for that specific thing, then it's okay to kind of like feel those feelings, rather than what we often do, what we, you know, avoid them or buffer them, eat too much, drink too much, you know, engage in some other, you know, behavior that's not helpful. So instead of doing that, you really feel them, like get into it, feel it, and deal with those emotions. But that's for something really bad that happens, you know, and that's truly tragic. On the day-to-day life, right, where we have thoughts, you know, I have my boss, you know, like, you know, my spouse did that, you know, that it just, you know, it's just those daily little things. You can really work on changing your thought about that by asking yourself. You can coach yourself, asking yourself a lot of questions about that, and then really thinking, is that how everybody would perceive this? Or is the fact that, you know, my spouse didn't fill up my car with gas, but yet he brought me flowers. He brings me flowers every day, and he takes care of the children. Like, so really, is this one thing worth, you know, and you kind of coach yourself around those thoughts. And that's really important to do that. And then thinking about your actions from those thoughts. And what's really interesting is that when you have a certain thought about something, sometimes it's about the actions that you take. So it's about again, the eating or the drinking or the bad behaviors, but sometimes it's really about all the things you don't do when you have that thought, right? So when you're having a thought that is, you know, kind of a negative thought, you end up avoid, right? You might end up avoiding that person. You end up not doing loving things towards that person. You end up behaving in a different way. And all that does is reinforce that thought, right? So, people really need to pay attention to all the things that they don't do, in addition to what they do when they're going through things like that.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's something I don't spend enough time probably thinking about that part of it of what I don't do. I try to be mindful of thinking about what I'm thinking, right? And then how am I responding to that? But then I realized that I don't know where I picked that up. I'm sure I was taught that, but why would I know that unless somebody told me, hey, you need to be actually thinking about your thoughts, and then what patterns that you are either beneficially stuck in or negatively stuck in.
Right, right. Yep, for sure. And I know one of the things I did want to talk a little bit about the improv, and so I went down this path. So I'm gonna tie them together.
Yes.
So just that, it'll be a tiny stretch, no, but so I think that one of the things that really resonated me about doing improv is that it actually is related to a lot of this, because when you are thinking about your thoughts and when you're thinking about other people and your feelings, you have to really listen and listen in a very objective way. So not what your brain is making out of something, but like what somebody actually said, right? Like the actual words, and take them as fact. And what I do, and what lots of people in their work, they work in teams, they have to work with other people, right? And so so you have to be really cognizant of what your teams is saying, what's factual, and what you're making it be, the thoughts that you have about that. And one of the key tenets of improv, there's several, but some of the top ones is, number one is that you have to listen intently to what your partner says, because you have no idea, you don't have a script, so you have to be listening intently to every single word. And then the big one that everybody kind of knows, if you know anything about improv, is you yes and it, right? And that's really key in relationships, because if you say something to me, and like if we had started this podcast and I was just like, nope, I don't know anything about it, and no, I don't know what to do, and I'm not sure I'm going to talk to you. Well, how would that have gone, right? That would not be so great, right? That would kind of ruin everything. And so thinking about that, both in your communication with your teams, and then in your communication in your personal life, to really listen to the other person, make them feel heard. And even if you don't necessarily agree with everything, people think that, sometimes when you think about this in a business sense, that if you're yes anding, then you're giving in, and that's not what it's about. It's the yes is acknowledging what you heard. Doesn't mean you're agreeing with what you heard, but the yes is, yes, I acknowledge what you just said. I'm validating what you just said, and I'm going to add to that, right? And in improv, we always add it in a very supportive way, right? So we support what our fellow actor just said. In life, we may not always support it, but by saying yes, and what about, would you consider this, right, is a much more effective way to communicate than you saying something to me and I just shut it down, right? Yes, I see your point, and I'm wondering if we could think about it this way, right? And so it's just these very just practical tenets about communication and listening and getting along in the world. And that's why I found it so fun on the one side, and then so meaningful to actually apply the principles in a work type situation.
Yeah, super practical. I think that's really, really powerful. Yes. And what about, would you consider, is this something that requires a self-assured, confident person? Because you talked about, I don't want to feel like I'm giving in. All right, well, this is not a zero-sum game, and we can admit when we're wrong, even though it seems like a lot of people in the world are incapable of doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you have to be self-assured. Yes and no. I think that's a really good question. I think all communication goes better if you are more confident and self-assured, and really about comfortable just being who you are in your own person, right? Communication is always going to go better that way. But if at the very base, if you're not ready for that, if you truly can just listen, because so many times the classic thing is when we're having a conversation, we are not listening, right? There's lots of actually literature that we already have like our comeback. We don't even know what we're coming back to, right? Because we haven't even listened, but we've got the comeback ready. We've got the, well, blah, 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 blah. It's so ineffective. So even just being ready to like, just to listen is a massive step, massive. Yeah.
Yeah. Like actually listen to the words, not what I'm assuming that you're going to say, not trying to look into the future, and actually just taking what you said at face value and not trying to interpret what it is that you're trying to get at from my perspective or whatever else.
Right.
Actually just
Right.
listen to what you're saying to me.
Yep. It's so simple, right? But I mean, that's the thing. The simplest things in life are sometimes like the hardest things,
Mm-hmm.
is what you
Yeah.
find.
And absolutely the truest. So
Mm.
I've never tried improv. I think I think I would enjoy it. And I really think that what we're doing in a lot of the ways, it's what we're doing in life, right?
Right.
Unless we're performing an actual play,
Mhm.
or I'm in a movie where there's a script that's written out. So what you're talking about is so valuable because that's what we're doing, is we're all
Yeah.
improving all the time.
100%. That's absolutely right. That's exactly right. Yep. That's why it's just so valuable. Yeah.
And
And
in
it,
my life it's important, but in medicine it's also really important because you're dealing with life and death type stuff.
yes, absolutely. And it's very weird. I think it also appealed to me because when people see improv, they're, oh, it's funny and but there's actually like a science to it. There's actually like, there's actually a way to approach it, and so I think it appealed to the nerd inside of me as
Mhm.
well, that there's actually some rules that you follow. So that was it's just great.
Yeah, I think without that it would probably be, I think that there's always well, a lot of the time there's always an art and a science behind things. And
Yeah.
you and I, as an amateur, I have no idea what I'm doing. We could probably have a pretty fun improv session, but if I
Yeah.
actually knew and was practiced, then it would be much obviously better.
Yes. Agree. Yep.
And that's probably true when I'm in the operating room dealing with the other medical professionals, and obviously when I'm in a consultation with a client, or what rather a patient, that I should probably just be listening to what they're telling me also.
Absolutely, right? That there's a whole thing in medicine about just if you listen to the history, which is the story, right? It's not the examination or anything, that like 90% of the time gives you the answer, right?
Mm,
But we're in a hurry, right? And we think that we've heard that story before,
mm.
and but really listening and asking the right questions will often be the trick. Yeah, for sure.
That's it. That's, I mean, fascinating, right? Just so many constraints on physicians today, with obviously money and time, and I've got this much time to spend with the patient and I need to get through, and I'm hungry, or I'm tired or whatever.
Right.
Um, yeah, super valuable.
Mhm.
I like
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
Well, Jenny, the people are ready for that difference making tip. What do you have for them?
Ah, all right. All right. So I actually have a quote. So I love quotes again. I love quotes from, I have like a vision board where I have quotes from different people. So I'm gonna tell you it. So it's not original, but it is a quote and I just love it. And it's actually from Henry Ford, if you can believe it. And I got my vision board. And it's actually coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, working together is success. And I love that because it's just kind of all these principles, right? You've got to come together, you've got to listen to each other. To stay together is work, and again, in any relationship, whether it's personal relationship or whether it's a business relationship, to stay together, that takes a lot of work. And then working together is really the success. And I just I love those words. So they
I
mean
think
a lot.
I think that is great stuff. That definitely gets, come on. That's
Yeah.
true. right? Those words are absolutely true. We all just getting together. We're maybe onto something, staying together. If it's relationships or business partners, that is work, and it can be hard. And actually working together and creating something great together is that's success. So I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Jenny, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people learn more about you? How can they engage with you?
Absolutely. So you can, best place to find me is at my website, which is Christner, CHRISTNER -strat, STRAT.com.
Perfect. Well, if you enjoyed this as much as I did, show Jenny your appreciation and share today's show with a friend who also appreciates good ideas. Go to Christner, CHRISTNER -strat, STRAT.com. Check out all the great things that Jenny is working on. I'll list that in the notes of the show, obviously. Thanks again, Jenny.
All right. Thank you.
And until next time, keep fighting the good fight, because we are all in this together.